If you own rental property in Los Angeles, there's a new problem you need to understand. Eviction cases are not just getting more delayed, they're getting more complicated. And in some cases, they're getting more expensive because of something many people never expected to see in housing court. And that's motions written by AI. We're now hearing about eviction cases where AI-generated motions are flooding the court. Fake case law is showing up in filings, and even tentative rulings have at times reflected the same kind of hallucinations that courts around the country have already been sanctioning lawyers for. That broad pattern is real and well documented, including in recent California and federal cases. And if that trend continues, landlords, sellers, and the court system itself may end up paying the price. Hi, I'm Frank Spencer, Mr. Chatsworth, and today I want to talk about something I think landlords, sellers, and property owners in Los Angeles need to be paying very close attention to. I recently watched a California Insider interview titled Eviction Cases in LA Are Getting More Complex, and Here's What's Driving It. In that interview, host Avi Sinai spoke with an attorney about the growing impact of AI on eviction cases here in Los Angeles. The interview's own summary says eviction cases are now arriving in court with motions written by AI, and that some tentative rulings have come back citing cases that simply don't exist. And that matters, because this is not just a technology story. It's a cost story, certainly a delay story, and for many landlords, it may become a settlement pressure story. Now, let me say this clearly. I'm not here to tell you that AI has no place in legal work, because I think clearly it does. These tools are getting better, and they'll continue to improve. But according to this interview, what we're seeing right now in at least some Los Angeles eviction matters isn't simply better legal efficiency. What we may be seeing is a rise in AI-generated motions, fake or hallucinated citations, self-litigants relying entirely on AI, and a court system that is being forced to spend more time sorting through material that simply may not be reliable. That concern is consistent with real-world legal developments. California courts and federal courts have recently sanctioned or reversed outcomes tied to fabricated or AI hallucinated citations, and California lawmakers are actively moving on AI rules for lawyers. Here's what stood out to me in the interview. One of the examples discussed in the interview were 20 separate motions, each reportedly around 60 pages, were filed in an eviction matter using AI. Now think about that for a moment. Even if those motions are weak, and even if some of the citations are unreliable, even if the legal reasoning is flawed, someone's still got to review them, and someone still has to respond. And according to the attorney in the interview, answering all of that would have cost the client $20,000 or more. So the client chose to settle instead. That example comes from the interview summary and is consistent with the broader concern that AI-heavy filings increase defense costs and complexity. The problem isn't whether the motions are good. The problem is whether the volume and complexity of the filings make the case too expensive to fight. And once that happens, the process itself becomes leverage. Another major issue raised in the interview is the use of fake cases. AI tools can generate legal-sounding authority that look plausible, read smoothly, and are completely made up. That's not a theory anymore. Courts have been dealing with exactly that problem. And in fact, just weeks ago, California Appeals Court reversed a ruling after finding that a fake legal citation had made its way into the decision. And earlier this month, the Ninth Circuit Court sanctioned attorneys over briefs containing multiple non-existent cases and AI hallucinations. There are also recent sanctions against lawyers who failed to verify AI-generated citations included in California-related cases. So when the attorney in this interview says that AI is introducing fake cases into motions and responses, that's not something I'd dismiss lightly, because once bad citations enter the system, the burden shifts to everyone else to catch them. And that takes time. This is where the issue becomes even bigger than one landlord or one tenant. If the courts are seeing more self-represented litigants using AI, more motions generated quickly and at scale, more citations that need verification, and more bad law mixed in with real law, and even occasional AI-assisted judicial drafting mistakes, then naturally cases become slower and harder to move. California Insider interview says that tentative rulings have come back citing non-existent cases, and recent California federal reporting confirms that AI fabricated citations are live and truly becoming a court problem. And when cases become slower, the costs do not disappear, they move. They move on to landlords, they move on to property owners, and the court system. And here's why landlords should care. If you're a landlord in LA, the practical takeaway is simple. Evictions may now be getting even more expensive to prosecute or defend. Not only because of tenant protections, not only because of court delays, but because AI may now be adding another layer of motion, practice, paper confusion, and cost. And that changes the economics of the case. And the landlord, while he may be legally right, may still choose to settle because the cost of pushing through the process has just become too high. That's a very different problem than simply asking, can I win? Now the question becomes, can I afford the process required to win? And this is not just a landlord issue. It's also a seller issue, because if you're selling tenant-occupied property in Los Angeles or inheriting a tenant problem before a sale, longer and more expensive eviction timelines matter to you also. They affect timing, holding costs, deal structure, buyer interest, and ultimately price and marketability. The longer it takes to resolve possession issues, the harder it may become to move cleanly into a sale. So even if you're not a landlord by trade, this still can affect you. And then there's Measure ULA. The interview tied this into the broader legal defense environment in Los Angeles, including Measure ULA funded eviction defense. That part's important too. The Measure ULA has funded tenant legal support and eviction prevention work, and LA's own housing materials confirm eviction defense and prevention as one of the funded program areas. LA has also continued supporting the eviction defense program this year. So when you combine more legal support, more motion practice, more AI tools, more self-generated filings, and already crowded courts, you get a process that may be increasingly difficult for small landlords and owners to navigate. Now, I want to be fair here. AI isn't going away, and it may eventually improve legal work in meaningful ways. But based on the example raised in this interview, and based on what the courts are already sanctioning in other settings, we're clearly in a transition period where technology is moving faster than the system's ability to reliably manage it. And in a transition period like that, the risk is not just bad information, it's process overload, it's cost, and it's delay. And the risk that people begin making settlement decisions not because the merits are weak, but because the process has become too expensive to endure. So if you own rental property in Los Angeles or are thinking about buying, selling, or managing tenant-occupied property here, this is something worth watching very closely because AI may be making some legal work faster. But in Los Angeles, eviction cases may also be making the process slower, more expensive, and more complex. And if this is where this is going, then landlords, sellers, and housing providers need to understand that the fight may no longer be about facts alone. It may also be about whether the system can process the case efficiently at all. And if you found this helpful, please make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. And if you're thinking about selling, I wrote a free guide called Avoiding a Failed Sale, How to Sell Smart and Walk Away Without Regret. And you can download it for free at www.mrchatsworth.com/ebook. And I'd truly like to hear from you in the comments. If you think AI is helping the courts or making already difficult cases even harder to resolve, please comment so and give me your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, I'm Frank Spencer, and I'll see you around the neighborhood.